Good morning. It's great to see you here at the Zendo and those of you online joining us from as far away, I believe, as Costa Rica. How extraordinary that we can do this. Portugal, and New York, and Vermont. So New Hampshire as well, I think. I can't remember everybody's location. California, San Diego. Thank you all for joining today. My name's Bokushu, and I was walking with our abbot a few nights ago. We were approaching Canal Street, quite nearby the Zendo, when we heard a sharp cry or a scream from the north side of Canal Street, or you might say the other shore of the canal that the Zendo is near. And it was interesting to note just how quickly my attention snapped to that sound. The feeling that there was a threat, that there was something dangerous ahead, just immediately came into my mind. These instincts that we have, without realizing it, so finely honed living in New York City all these years. We can't help but immediately pay attention. If only we could always be paying such careful attention. I think that's really what we're here to learn to do, the skill of attention. But in that moment, it was automatic and instinctual. So I immediately began scanning for the person because I knew that there was somebody who was surely in distress, a little unhinged, shall we say. And I saw the person just based on movement. You look for dress, you look for movement, you look for signs that this person is somehow out of sync with the general indifference of the mob. And it's almost more like you're looking for an object than a person. And you know it's a person, but in the threat manifestation, it's almost as if this is an object, a mountain, you might say, hurtling towards you that could crush you in its path. So I saw the person at a distance, although it was very challenging to see them in the darkness, moving quickly to my right, to the east, from the west. And I became immediately apprehensive about what would happen if we were to reach the other shore when that person was there to greet us. But as it happened, he was very rapid in his movements, and he moved quickly beyond the scope of our movements. And by the time we got to the other side of Canal, he was well away from us, and all I could see from a distance from behind were the balled up fists of a person in a state of rage for I know not what. And this is really the sort of sight that we see in New York City and other large cities almost every day. It seems almost a surprise to us if we don't encounter such a sight as we travel about in the city. We don't know who this person is. We don't know why they've lost it. Is this exceptional or is this typical? What is the source of their distress? We dismiss it with a sigh of relief that we were not affected by that person, other than that brief moment where we're afraid we might be. So I guess the question is, with such a common phenomenon, why take up your time speaking about it here and now? Why do I risk boring you with something so commonplace? And I think that's exactly the point, is that what is common passes unnoticed. Our attention, coming back to that, is only engaged by the exceptional. And what is common is immediately categorized and set aside somewhere so that we can move on to what is apparently, in our deluded minds, something more important than what is common and everyday. And it's striking, though, that these outbursts are common and everyday, but they are. And I think that it's important to note that our neglect and inattention are in themselves provocative to such people, that this might very well be the cause of their distress. But what are we to do, or what are we to not do, about the legions of people in this great city, in small towns, and in the countryside, who have absolutely no one to talk to, who have no one to rely upon, whose isolation creates these disturbances and perpetuates them? And of course, we, in our own separateness, are part of this isolation, are we not? It just happens that we, for some reason, are better able to cope with our self-imposed separation from the others, ceaselessly coming at us, passing behind us. We aren't responsible for these others, but we can't pretend that we're separate from them and that we aren't affected by their presence in our communities. I think I would like to dismiss them, certainly. They're crazy, they're imbalanced, checked out. But I think Samuel Johnson, who was one of our great literary geniuses, spoke from his own experience in elegant terms about this delusion that I am not potentially crazy myself. He said, "Of the uncertainties of our present state, the most dreadful and alarming is the uncertain continuance of reason." He understood, because he'd been committed to an asylum himself, that people can lose it at any time. Even the most brilliant and accomplished among us can lose it at any time. And we pass people all the time about whom we know absolutely nothing. Are they on the edge of an eruption? Have they just erupted? Did they just the block before attack another person? We have no idea. But we just walk around and pretend as if none of that ever could happen. So are we seeing these people, or are we seeing our lack of seeing? Are we seeing the human beings around us, or are we just seeing our judgments and biases and quick assumptions about who they are, what they are doing, what they have done, and what they might be capable of doing? Do you consider yourself a people person? What would that mean to be a people person in a world filled with people whose minds we don't know, whose behavior we don't necessarily understand or even see? I am not a people person. And I am grateful for that. Wrapped up in myself, I very often take a utilitarian view of other people. What can they do for me? What service can this individual render to me? What is their utility to me? And adjust my attention to be proportionate to my interest in what this person can provide. It's like, excuse me, everybody is a service provider. And if they are not providing a service that I want, then they're of no purpose or use to me. It sounds terrible, but really, I think many of us operate on that level a lot of the time. And that we just don't notice it. We just don't see the automatic mechanism of finding somebody interesting when they can be useful and dismissing them when they are not useful, or worse, a threat. So, in the Tenzo Kyokun, our erstwhile study text, which you can buy a copy of on the bookshelf right over there, we read the following by Dogen. When washing the rice, remove any sand you find. In doing so, do not lose even 1 grain of rice. When you look at the rice, see the sand at the same time. When you look at the sand, see also the rice. Examine both carefully. Then a meal containing the 6 flavors and the 3 qualities will come together naturally. So I think we can apply this to our lives in this society. Who's the rice and who's the sand? Do we know? How do we separate them? Can we separate them? Try as we might, don't we find sand in our rice no matter what? Don't we find rice in our sand no matter what? It may be that the rice is hard and bitter, and that the sand is light and fluffy. But I wouldn't try to eat it. We can wash the rice as carefully as we wish, but the sand will remain. We can wash the sand as carefully as we wish, but there will surely be grains of rice lurking in the sand. In the texture of this moment, in this privileged space that we temporarily inhabit, the lost and lonely ones howling on the street are present. They're here right now in this privileged space and that privileged space online. We cannot avoid them. We cannot deny them, and we cannot imagine that we are completely immune from the things that afflict them. As you may know, this passage that I read from Dogen alludes to a crucial incident in the life of the Sixth Ancestor. And more specifically, it alludes to a dialogue between Dongshan Liangjie and Sui Feng, who was at the time his rice steward. Dongshan asked Sui Feng, "What are you doing?" Sui Feng replied, "Cleaning rice." Dongshan pursued, "Are you washing the grit to get rid of the rice, or are you washing the rice to get rid of the grit?" Sui Feng replied, "Rice and grit are both removed at once." Dongshan said, "Well, what will the monks eat?" Sui Feng overturned the rice basin, spilling the rice on the floor. That sounds pretty crazy, doesn't it? Just at a time when you could hardly find a thing to eat, just turning a basin of food over on the floor. But this was to make the point that Sui Feng was actually stuck on the absolute. Even as he was fulfilling the practical role of washing the rice, he was stuck on the absolute, that there's no such thing as rice or grit, that they're all gone at once. Unfortunately, that is not the case, or perhaps it's fortunate. And you might have noticed, if you read Zen literature, that a lot of people are yelling. Yelling and getting hit. Yes. And this seems very like our streets in New York City, doesn't it? But again, it was to a purpose, not some random explosion to relieve psychic tension that has become absolutely intolerable in the person. The inability of people to live with themselves explains most mental disturbances. If we want whatever we choose to define as a better world to manifest itself, the alleviation of mental anguish and dysfunction must be a very high priority. And fortunately, that is precisely the business we are engaged with here. By looking steadily, patiently, and non-judgmentally at our minds, we can conquer our demons, acknowledging them first and foremost, seeing them compassionately, and allowing them to slip away. When we see the pain, the unresolved conflicts, the lack of acknowledgement, the lack of support, the tremendous neglect that we might have suffered in childhood, whatever it is, when we see it, it loses its power over us. That is the secret sauce of what we do here, is to simply observe, and whatever we see loses its power and achieves a measure of integration in ourselves. That tension is relieved just a tiny bit every time we sit on the cushion. We don't just see how much worse it is on the streets. We see it in newspaper headlines as well, don't we? This phenomenon of somebody crying out in pain on Canal Street is enlarged in our nation, isn't it? It's enlarged in our world. These cries are happening all the time. Cries from governments, which are using psychic energy to purposes that are highly destructive. Malignant psychic energy is behind the torrent of blame, abuse, and vengeance that is inflaming our society, very similarly to a maniac yelling on Canal Street. We hope to avoid it. We hope our friends, our family, and our communities will avoid it. But will they avoid it? And if so, for how long? What will we do or not do when the madman turns his attention to us? That's the question. Even as we tame our own demons on the cushion, what will we do when it's our turn? I think what we do is we keep practicing. We want to protest, we certainly do that. If we want to express our dissatisfaction, we certainly do that. Give money to organizations that espouse our beliefs, we do that. But above all, continue to sit and practice and see the madman in ourselves. We need it, and the world needs it. I was going to close with a quote from Janis Joplin, but her quote uses the word fuck many times, and she even uses the word motherfucker. And I thought that that was a little low class for this assembly. So I thought I'd give you a classier quote, and this is from Oscar Wilde. The aim of life is self-development. To realize one's nature perfectly, that is what each of us is here for. People are afraid of themselves nowadays. They have forgotten the highest of all duties, the duty that one owes to oneself. Of course, they are charitable. They feed the hungry and clothe the beggar, but their own souls starve and are naked. Let's keep practicing. Thank you.